Hello everyone. Okay, so today I'm going to be showing you how to start your Picasso 3 musicians collage. Okay, so I'm going to walk you through the first musician, and then after that, I'm hoping you guys will be able to do the other two musicians on your own. The first thing you're going to need is you're going to need a black crayon and a blue crayon. You are going to split the space in half. The black crayon you're going to lightly color the bottom half of the paper with, and the blue crayon you're going to color the top half. The black crayon is supposed to be like the road that these musicians are standing on, or the sidewalk, however you want to think about it. So you're just going to color it, and really lightly you're going to color the top and bottom. So enjoy this speeded up version of me coloring. Alright, so I'm just putting my crayons away, and if you noticed when I was coloring, I put my thumb along the edge, because sometimes coloring the edge of your paper can be hard, and so I put my thumb along the edge, and so my crayon could bounce back from my thumb instead of going off the edge of the paper, if you noticed that. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut out a, like moon, or a sun. I mean, really it's blue, so it could be either, but I'm just going to cut a circle with my scissors. And I am just freehanding this circle. If you want, you can do that, or you can choose to do it another way where you cut a piece of paper, or I give you a piece of paper, and you take a pencil and you draw a circle, which is what I'm about to do. Now, if you do this, you're going to cut it out and just try your best to stay on the line. Make sure that your scissors stay still, and if you notice, the paper is the thing that moves. Your hands with the scissors pretty much never move. Now, when I put it down like that, you can see the pencil. Not good. No, 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 no. We don't want that. You flip it over so you cannot see the pencil lines, okay? Because no matter how perfectly you cut it out, there's always some pencil lines that you can see. Now this applies for anything that I'm about to cut out. So when I cut out the buildings, you can draw the buildings first, but if you draw them, then you have to make sure you flip them over. Pencil side goes down always, okay? So we are going to get black paper, and you are going to use this to create your buildings. You want to have 4 buildings. I found is like a good number. If you have too many, it seems too crowded. If you have not enough, it doesn't seem enough like a city. So you want to make sure the first one's kind of short so you have enough space for your moon or sun, whichever one you prefer. And you also want to make sure not all of the buildings are just plain rectangles. When I do my collages for this project, I did the first one and the last one as just like plain squares or rectangles. And then the 2 in the middle, I gave them more of like a fancier stair step type top to my building that you're about to see me cut out. Okay, I just think it makes it look more interesting, and you can do the stair step design with all of your buildings if you want. That's totally fine. I just don't want them all to just be plain rectangles, okay? If you only want to do it to one building, that's fine, but I want to see it at least in one building, okay? Now, what I'm doing here is I'm going to start gluing everything down. I would make sure to take them off of the paper. I found that if you flipped over, like say your moon or your sun onto the crayon that you just colored, it kind of got a little blue on it. So I made sure to do it on my actual table that you're working on. And I just want you guys to use glue stick for this. If you have white glue, you can use it, but white glue gets messy real fast. And if you do use white glue, you know, dot, not a lot. I'm using like basically a fancy version of a glue stick. If you can kind of see it, that's why I didn't show it to the camera, because it's not going to be the same thing you guys use. But just use a glue stick, glue it on the back, and you'll notice I am going to put my hand down. I'm going to hold it for, say, count to 10, 20, 25 to really make sure it's stuck to that paper, because it's covered in wax right now because up from the crayon. So it naturally doesn't really want to stick. The glue doesn't want to stick to it. So you're really going to have to like press it down and kind of force it. That doesn't mean banging on your paper or pounding on it. That's not going to make it glue any better, but just holding it down and trying to press with your hand gently on your paper to get that stick. Okay. So now I'm starting my first musician. You're going to want to pick out what kind of skin you want your musician to have. In my example that I am going to show you guys, I did one with like peach skin, one with like brown skin, and then one with like a really dark brown skin. Okay. I have lots of different skin tone color paper that you can use. Or if you're like, I don't want to do the normal colors, I want them to have blue skin. Maybe you want them to be aliens. That's fine. It's whatever you want. You want to make sure you don't waste any paper. So from that square that I cut, I actually cut a circle for his head, and I was able to cut out arms for him. To do arms, you just make ovals and make them really long ovals to begin with, and then that way you can cut them in half wherever you want the arm to bend. But for right now, I keep them as full ovals until I get everything positioned. And this may take a little while, a couple days of like cutting out little pieces, because it's a lot of little pieces you've got to get together. So the head is a circle, the arms are just long ovals, and then you are going to start with the torso, which is just going to be a square. And so pick out what color shirt you want him to have. And on mine, I believe I chose a green color. So the torso is just a square, and then you have to cut out, basically think of them as like sleeves to his shirt. So what they are is they're going to be little squares or little circles. You can change up the shape. I just did little squares for mine. Those are going to be like his sleeves or his shoulders. And then now I'm going to position the arms. The first musician is a guitar player. So he's got to have one arm holding the guitar and then the other one holding like the neck of the guitar. That's why I'm positioning the arms the way that I am. You might have to adjust, like maybe you made your oval too wide or too thick, so you might have to trim a little bit to make it look the way you want it to look. And then and if you've noticed, I'm not gluing any of this down. I'm making sure it all looks good together before I glue anything. So all of your pieces are going to be cut before you glue any of them down, okay? So I cut that oval that was his other arm in half because I wanted his arm to be bent towards the guitar. So I just put the two like right angles together to make an elbow. And then now I'm going to make the guitar, and the musician's instruments are very hard to cut out freehand, even for me. So I just took a pencil and I lightly drew the guitar on a sheet of paper before I cut it out to give me a guide to follow for my scissors. And I believe, yes, I'm going to show the camera. You can see I didn't do it perfect the first time. I had to make some adjustments, but remember the pencil we're not going to see because it's going to be facing towards the paper. So now I'm just going to cut it out and position that as well. Okay, now to make the pants, I would recommend choosing, if you have pattern paper, to do either the shirt or the pants with like a pattern to them. If you don't have pattern paper, then solid paper will look just as good too. But I have some scrapbook paper laying around, so I'm going to use that. And all you do is you cut a square and then you just cut like a triangle out of it to make the legs. Super duper easy. It's just a square, triangle cut out. Okay, then the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make his feet. Now, I want his feet to be perfectly identical. So I'm taking 2 pieces of paper, you can see there, 2 pieces of the same brown paper, and I'm cutting out kind of like a circle shape. I tried to make it a little like squat, so kind of an ovally, circly shape. And now I end up with 2 perfectly identical pieces. When I placed them, I could tell they were way too big. So I laid them back on top of each other, and then I trimmed off some more just to make them a little bit smaller. And then once I placed those, I decided that they looked much more reasonably sized. And now that it's all together, oh, there's one more thing that I added. I totally forgot. I decided that his head looked a little bare. Now, you don't necessarily have to do this, but I decided I wanted him to have a hat. So I cut out a long rectangle, skinny rectangle for like the brim of the hat, and then another shorter rectangle for the top of the hat. Now, you could change this up. You could maybe add hair if you wanted to. You could add like a crown. Like, you can add any kind of accessories you can figure out how to cut out. So now that I have it all positioned and it all looks good, I'm taking and kind of spacing everything out and putting glue. When you glue these down, you've got to glue from the piece that has almost everything on top of it and move from the bottom all the way to the top. And I know that that's kind of hard to understand, but basically it's going to be shirt first, then pants, then the head, and then the upper arms / shoulder. You'll kind of get a feel for it as you build these people, these musicians from like experience, okay? And then when it all comes together, it's pretty cool. So enjoy, again, this sped up version of me gluing. Okay, so I am done with my person, a musician. I decided that his hat needed a little bit of something extra, so I'm cutting out a really skinny strip of like purple paper to make it as like a ribbon that went around his hat. And I just want to say, this whole time I have been saying he and calling him a him, but you could just as easily make it into a girl musician if you want. And instead of, a shirt and pants, you could give her a dress. You just want to make sure that it's in basic shapes. So squares, triangles, ovals, rectangles, that sort of thing. So get creative. Don't make it match mine exactly. Like, make your own thing. Give her a hat or a flower. I don't know. Just get creative. So that is how you make your first musician. So the other things you need to add is you need to add the other 2 musicians. One is a clarinet player and one is a saxophone player. And then add yellow squares on your buildings. I'm using a skinny Sharpie to add details to my musician. So on his instrument, I'm adding a little, like that little hole that's in a guitar, and then adding strings to the guitar. As I was saying, you need to add little yellow squares so that the buildings look like they're lit up, like you see in the final example. But that's it. Enjoy. I hope you guys like this. Tell me if I should keep doing these.